see here. Hello, everybody. Hello. Please turn to the person next to you and give them a high five for showing up today. Give some love to the people around you. All right, there. Here we go. What do we want? Why are we here today? What do we want?
Dresses!
And when the hell do we want it?
Now!
That's why we're here today, and that's why we're out here and we're putting up this fight in the sun. That's right. These past 2 weeks, my Intro to Literature class has been studying A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, written in 1949. In it, Walter, the main protagonist of the play, explains to his mother, the following. He says, talking about life, Mama. Mama, you know it's all divided up. Life is, sure enough, between the takers and the tooken. I figured it out finally, yeah. Some of us always getting tooken. 7 decades later, Walter's words still ring true. Like Elvis said when she introduced me, I am a former EOPS student here at City, and as a professor over the last 8 years, I have discovered that my story is not unique. So many can relate, and many have endured far greater challenges due to systemic racism. I come from a working class family. My dad, Charlie, who adopted me so I could have his last name, was in the Army until a training accident took the feeling out of his left leg. He then worked as a drafter until a nonviolent felony conviction took away his employment options. Afterwards, he worked in construction until he got hurt on the job in an accident that took away his physical strength. Now my once playful Pops lives with degenerative disc disease in his back, a hernia in his belly, wheelchair dependent with the loss of his legs. Like Walter discovers in the play, my dad too found that capitalism was happy to take his labor. But now the VA does whatever it can to deny him full disability benefits with endless red tape. My mother, who raised me on her own for 3 years after my birth father returned to Iran, worked as a secretary until carpal tunnel and tendinitis took away her typing skills. For the majority of her life, my mother, like many of the women in my family, worked the 2nd or 3rd shift as a waitress and another job during the day until she too became too disabled to work any longer. Both of my parents worked until they could work no more. And do you know what they have to show for all of their labor? Pain. Lots and lots of pain. In their backs, in their necks, in their chest, in their hands. When I look back on my life, my parents were always working 2 or 3 jobs or looking for work to support our family of 5. That meant that I, as the eldest in my family, took on more responsibilities in the home, taking care of my 2 younger sisters, making sure they got their homework done, making sure the dishes were done, walking them to school, doing laundry, making dinner. The list goes on. And yet my family was always one job loss, one illness, one accident away from losing our housing. In fact, we spent many a day and night in shelters, including St. Vincent de Paul right here down the street, welfare offices, and food lines at the local church. My parents were always working, but it was never enough to stabilize. And is it any wonder? Nobody can support their family on a single salary in America. Right now, according to the 2016 data from the National Low Income Housing Coalition, to rent a modest bedroom in California, a modest 1 bedroom in California, a person needs to work 89 hours a week. And to afford a 2-bedroom apartment in California, you need to be making $28.90 an hour. Who makes that? Who has that much time? And yet, like many white Southerners, my parents were duped by the myths of meritocracy and bootstrap theory. They bought into the idea that if you worked hard enough, you could get out of poverty, you could move beyond living paycheck to paycheck, you could change your circumstances. And yet here I am, a sure sign of success for all of their sacrifice, a working professional, the supposed outcome of the American dream ideal. But the reality is that I am $90,000 in debt for an education that is completely free in other countries. As an adjunct professor, I have 0 job security. I have the same education or more as full-time faculty, and I have the same experience in teaching, but yet I earn half the pay. At any time, I can lose my health insurance because it's tied to the amount of classes I get assigned, which as an adjunct is never secure. I must scramble from campus to campus, spreading my time and self so thin that sometimes I forget which campus I'm supposed to be on. My folks listened to the promise of capitalism that those who worked for it would find material success, but what we found was debt and a safety net traded to the top 1% to give them more of the pie. Under Trump, it just traded student loan default protections for higher fees because it cares more about protecting banks than protecting students from predatory lenders. My whole life, capitalism has told workers that we are disposable people, threatening us at every turn. It told us that a livable wage was not possible. It told us that we just needed to try harder. In other words, it straight up lied to us. As Trump administration fills with millionaires with little to no political experience and family members occupy positions they are not qualified to fill, there can be very little doubt that our leaders have been corrupted by corporate interest and cronyism. For a very long time, too many of our political leaders have been on short-term borrow from the corporate world. It's just with the election of Trump, they're not even trying to hide it. These so-called leaders go into office, make policies that favor their corporate friends. Then they leave office and return to the private sector. They are not in office to serve the people. For them, our aching bodies are just a means for more production. And when we need protections, when we need subsidized daycare so we can work, when we need a livable wage to raise our families, when we ask for universal health care like every single other developed nation in the world, they have the nerve to label us as lazy. Woo! They say we want handouts, that we feel entitled to something that does not belong to us, that we must be socialists. But guess what, friends? At the end of the day, that is our money. That is our labor that makes the company function. That is our fingers that type those memos, our backs that break, making those beds in those hotels, our innovative ideas that grow the business. That is our money that buys the products that benefit stakeholders. And I am sick and tired of billionaires born into wealth calling the hardworking people who make this country actually function lazy. We have been working from the start. Our labor starts in the home and continues until we can work no longer. Our labor produces the money you hoard when you don't pay your fair share of taxes. When green rules everything around you, it is no wonder that the land of the free is really the land that incarcerates the most people. It is no wonder that the finest city in America is really home to the fourth largest homeless population in the nation. It is no wonder that a third of community college students in this state, the world's sixth largest economy, face uncertain housing and homelessness, while 12% aren't sure where they will get their next meal. And it is no wonder that when we delve deeper into that data, that we find Black and Southeast Asian students face food and housing challenges at a higher rate. It is no wonder that adjunct faculty make up to 80% of departments of community colleges on a national scale, and yet we must work at 2, 3, 4 campuses to earn the same compensation as our full-time colleagues. It is no wonder because the bait and switch promise of capitalism has led us to a place of hypocrisy and contradiction. To a place where we don't take care of our students. We don't take care of the poor, the hungry, the environment, basically any of our most vulnerable populations. To a place where congressional leaders and oligarchs in the highest office, completely out of touch with everyday people, cut programs like Meals on Wheels and after-school lunch programs because, quote, there is no evidence that these, quote, programs work. Evidence they know nothing about because they've never needed these programs. It is no wonder because billionaires like Betsy DeVos, who have zero public school or political experience, can buy their way into positions of power that have a direct impact on our lives. It is no wonder because we live in a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy where a racist misogynist who can't even spell precedence can become president. Woo! We are living in a time of inversions and reversals, and this is why our unity and vigilance matter more than ever. In Trump's America, his nominee for Secretary of Education didn't know at her confirmation hearing that the Individual with Disabilities Education Act is a federal law that must be enforced in all 50 states. Instead, she wanted to leave it to the states to decide how to enforce it. As the aunt of a beautiful nonverbal boy with blindness and autism and 2 nephews with ADHD who depend on IEPs and specialists, I can tell you that this ignorance terrifies me. And worse, when given a chance to clarify her statement, DeVos completely ignored the majority of students with disabilities who attend public institutions, but instead focused on programs that promote the privatization of education, further showing that working class families with children with disabilities just don't matter in her vision for privatized education in this country. In Trump's America, we have seen the uptick of white supremacy and racism in every corner of society. From craft-making Michaels to hipster Starbucks to high school sporting events, racists have become emboldened, terrorizing people of color, chanting obscenities, verbally assaulting and taunting people based on their perceived race. Just last week, a judge ruled that a mostly white suburb in Birmingham, Alabama, is allowed to succeed from a school district despite a clear racial motive to keep their school white. In this movement for, quote, local control of our school districts, segregation has reemerged, masked as parental concern. One can't help but see the similarity between their push for local control and the restrictive covenants Lorraine Hansberry writes about in her play. Agreements signed by, quote, concerned whites in the North to keep Black people out of white neighborhoods after the Great Migration. In Trump's America, wait, you know what? Fuck that. This is not Trump's America. He may be the avatar of capitalism and white privilege, but we, the people, made one by our commitment to intersectional justice. And we, the union, the mighty, mighty union, are the lifeblood, the heartbeat, and the voices of true greatness in America. And together, we will defy hate politics, we will defend rights, demand justice, and co-create the world that we believe in. Amen. Woo!
Testing.